Today on the Topping Show, Matt Walsh reacts to the Chicago mayor declaring ICE-free zones. Elon Musk goes viral for a meme on judges letting criminals off the hook. The Miami Department of Transportation rips out pride crosswalks. Kash Patel gets ratioed on X when he claims that the FBI is delivering a lot of transparency. The Kia Soul bites the dust as it will not make it to the 2026 model year. And power banks are being recalled because they may just, whoops, explode. All of that and much more on the Topping Show. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of the Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I say your founder at least twice a day. Gotta say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, reach out to the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, still giving away a free flamethrower with every IT purchase with Picatinny rail adapters to mount it to any standard AR-15, like all awesome accessories can be. Go to toppingtechnologies.com and click the flamethrower button to learn more and see me shooting a flamethrower. And lastly, you're trying to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you can click that button and tell your friends and your enemies, I would greatly appreciate it. Now, going over to the business part of the podcast, you have the Kia Soul biting the dust, as again, it will not make it to the next model year. Now, this brought to us thanks to Adam Ismail over at thedrive.com, where you'll get to see the, I would say moderately cute little Kia Soul. Partially just because of the hamsters, because of those old commercials. And Adam Ismail says, quote, "Goodbye, hamsters. The Kia Soul is dead. The Kia is discontinuing the Soul after the 2026 model year, marking the end for another cheap compact vehicle in the United States." Here you can see the Kia Soul side by side with some fun green colors, which, in terms of, generation after generation, it actually looked like it came along nicely. The newer generation, the Gen 2, slightly more curvatures to it, while still remaining, to the original theme. I would say aged moderately gracefully. Moderately? Let me know your thoughts on that regard. Now, diving in the article, again, add credit to Adam Ismail. They say, quote, "The Kia of today is very different from the Kia of 15 years ago. The worlds apart from the Kia of the 1990s. But it wouldn't have reached such heights if not for this plucky, quirky soul, which staked the brand's unique identity for the first time. No longer was Kia merely a low-entry, lower-cost alternative to Toyota and Honda, but the Soul had something you couldn't find anywhere else. And that legacy and that boxy hatchback often associated with hamsters and stormtroopers will blow out after the 2025 model year." They say, quote, "Yes, Kia has announced that the Soul will be retired once the current crop is sold through. The nameplate launched in 2008, a time when there was genuine enthusiasm surrounding small cars for the first time in a very long time in this country. That had a lot to do with the post-recession doldrums, of course, but the Soul was appealing because it was a necessary reminder that cheap transportation needed to be bland, undesirable, or cramped, which, I guess they're moderately roomy. I've been inside them a couple times. And again, they did have some really fun colors. It's so boring how, like 80% of cars are white, silver, and black paint jobs. I can't help but joke that 98% of all Porsche 911s are silver. They have to get the paint for free, but it's like, yeah, so often you see them on the road. It's like, oh yeah, another silver one. Golly gee, that's exciting. Which, obviously, that's sarcasm. I would never buy a silver car. Now, they say, quote, "Like the Honda Fit, the Soul could swallow more cargo than you'd think. And of course, the ad campaigns went a long way to establish the car's optimistic vibe in the physique of America's public, buoyed by the posse of streetwise hamsters. I generally don't know what's more shocking, the spot from 2010 where the rodents are slamming basketballs like they're in the NBA, or the sub $14,000 starting point of the first generation model," which, wow. Well, again, some of that is, us being robbed via inflation because of the government. But yeah, also, less regulation back then, less, a lot less from emissions and safety in terms of crumple zones, yada, yada. Yeah, every year is one of the reasons why cars cost more and more every year is increased regulation. Now they say, quote, "Soul also represented a much needed glow up for Kia and Hyundai's design in the late aughts, and one of the first products shaped under the influence of Peter Schreier, who left Volkswagen Group for the Korean automaker in 2006. From here on, things would only go up," which, true, but, they were at the bottom of the barrel. Statistically speaking, I think it'd be almost impossible for them to go down. And people forget, a couple decades ago, Kia Hyundai were so low quality. You used to be able to buy like 3 vehicles for the price of one. I'm not joking. They used to have like ad campaigns like, bring a friend, sign up with them, and we'll give you these 3 cars for the price of one. Like, comically cheap, and they're so unreliable and so shoddy in quality, Jay Leno used to compare them to being less reliable than a bobsled going down the hill. Now, they say that the Soul exits the market now in its third generation. Kia noted that its send-off release over the years appealed expanded beyond the younger buyers it was originally designed for, attracting an older demographic that Kia quickly realized were often people of the same spirit. Not unlike the Honda Element, the Soul found that inventive design transcends generations. It leaves the K4, the brand's cheapest entry point, starting at $23,185, which, yeah, that's a pretty penny. At that price point, I would just spend like, what was it, $600 more to get a Honda Civic? Well, more if you want the Honda Civic SI, which obviously you would because, stick shift and turbo. But nevertheless, yeah, it's one of those, it was a staple of the culture. I mean, who doesn't finally remember those funny little hamster commercials? And yeah, it's sad to see this fun little subcompact car. But let me know, have you ever been inside one of these things? Do you think anything will try to replace it in terms of the general shape? I mean, Scion had one that was very similar in shape, or do you think this type of vehicle will just evaporate from the market altogether? Let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the cultural part of the podcast, you have the Miami Department of Transportation ripping up pride crosswalks, literally. Now, this brought to us thanks to End Wokeness. And he says, quote, LGBTQ crosswalk in Miami Beach is torn up by the Florida Department of Transportation. And this is why you should be watching on Rumble, or was it Spotify? Or as I call it, Spotify because it's funnier. Or Apple Podcasts because YouTube will take this music out. They're literally using one of those bobcats to rip up the bricks, which, yes, it is rainbow in color. And yeah, I do wonder what would that cost be? Because again, you have your giant machine that it takes fuel, obviously. They have a whole construction crew out there, and then you're going to have to transport bricks, which are pretty darn heavy. So yeah, not the best use of tax dollars in terms of efficiency. Again, there's some really high quality power washers and pressure washers. Rick could just rip up all that paint and get it looking factory new when it comes to the actual bricks on the ground. I can't help but think this is done in part for political. I mean, this is going to be used for political campaigns, hilariously enough, on the left and the right, as people will have to cry and say, "Oh my gosh, rainbow crosswalks are gone. How will people walk across the street without the constant reminder of these things?" And of course, people on the right will say, this is fighting the woke culture war, which, yeah, it is. There's definitely been a infusion of stuff that people will probably get tired of. And yeah, this went pretty viral. Got about 4.5 million views and 159,000 likes. And yeah, presumably they're just going to lay it down with regular brick. And I just find it so perplexing. I think most of these crosswalks are done just for entrapment reasons in terms of why they put pride crosswalks. It's an instance where it doesn't add to the functionality of a crosswalk. If anything, you would argue maybe is a distraction to drivers. It might cause them to make mistakes. Also, it's on the ground. Inevitably, it's going to get dirty and trashed and not going to look good pretty soon. Mother Nature is a thing. People, especially, well, maybe not Florida, but places like San Francisco, people are very much messy, letting themselves go. Well, not just physically in terms of overweight, but in terms of, on the public streets. I try to keep this moderately family friendly, but let's just say they're not big fans of restrooms in San Francisco. So I always thought it was stupid to put any symbol on the ground like that of any significance, except for, safety, things like the arrows and, identification, ID symbols for drivers. Now, the comments from the first ones comes to us thanks to the conservative alternative who says, quote, "This isn't Sodom and Gomorrah, it's America." It's a, looks like the bathroom sign guy, and he's painted the American flag and he's kicking the rainbow guy. Says this, and again, on the bottom it says, "This is America, not Sodom and Gomorrah." Getting 1.6 thousand likes, though if you read the Bible and learned about Sodom and Gomorrah, you probably look at a place like San Francisco and be like, it's not, you say that, but kind of, yeah, it kind of is. Now, Liberty Pill Memes says, quote, "Not all heroes wear capes." Here you got a Ford truck. Is that Ford F-250, 350? It's a dually for sure. This went viral. I believe he's arrested, charged with hate crime. This is, again, a pride flag painted on the street where, again, people drive, animals, make a mess, and people do. And he decided to burn out there, which that is a really good burnout. He missed a little bit. Oh, this is actually super. It's a trans pride progress flag. Hard to keep track of all the symbols. He does a burnout over the whole thing. And yeah, then leftist judges arrested them and fined them, and they got 2.1 thousand likes. Tour Golf, not PGA Tour, says, we're healing, gaining 202 likes. Ridiculous Takes says, quote, I'm here for the spirit, but I think some black or white paint would have been a better use of tax dollars, getting 207 likes, which, well, was he ratioed? He got 15 responses. Let's see. Our conservative says, quote, are you implying we changed the bricks orientation, getting 26 likes? He also had Gunther Eagleman says, quote, this makes me happy, getting 223 likes. David Santa Clara says, literally just paint over it, getting 342 likes. Was he ratioed? No. And Jim Strabo says they couldn't risk contaminating the other sidewalks. This was the right move. And Planet of Memes, though, we'll just point there is no meme from this individual saying, quote, the nation is healing, getting 192 likes. Trump Tracker, our favorite contrarian, well, not really, but try to follow people on the left, the right, and the middle, get some diversity of thoughts. Life gets a little bit boring for the echo chamber. Trump Tracker says, quote, and wokeness is offended by colored crosswalks, LMFAO, getting 2.3 thousand likes. Bracco Nagarsky responded with Biden at the podium saying, why more, getting 4 likes. Let's see. Galvin Moore says, how about we start painting gigantic crosses with Jesus on the cross on crosswalks, getting 25 likes. MK Altered says, rainbows are for children, not confusing adult males cosplaying as women, getting 226 likes. Mariners fan says, quote, Trump Tracker is offended by bulldozers, LMFAO, getting 32 likes. So, fact check, I don't think that was actual bulldozers, one of those Bobcat skid movers, I believe. Nevertheless, Oil London simply says, beautiful, getting 148 likes. Libercat Media TM says, quote, meanwhile, Greg Abbott is repainting LGBTQ crosswalks in Texas. That was, Houston, getting 204 likes. Paul Zupa says, this is America healing, getting 130 likes. Brick Suit says, I hope these bricks could be rehabilitated and put to good use, getting 130 likes. Well, this got 3.4 thousand likes. The Immortal has the Lisa Simpson meme, or as normal people call them, memes. Says, dear trans community, don't tell me I have to accept you for who you are when you couldn't accept yourself for who you were. And 3.4 thousand likes, and kind of reminder to click that subscribe button. When I first started the show, I spoke faster than Ben Shapiro and more awkwardly than Joe Biden climb upstairs, and stuttering more than Joe Biden. But as I slowly but surely gain subscribers, I've been slightly better at speaking. Granted, most people would just say there's barely any improvement at all, but I would argue, statistically speaking, it's gotten a little bit better. So click that button and tell your friends. I would greatly appreciate it. And also, tell your enemies. They might be so enamored and impressed by your choice and material podcast that they then become your friends. Or they hate me so much, they then become greater enemies. It becomes a physical altercation. So maybe I shouldn't recommend it. Either way, make for a fun, interesting story. So tell your friends and your enemies as well. Now, Global Index says, quote, I won't use someone's pronouns for the same reason I won't talk to schizophrenic's imaginary friends, getting 862 likes. Mirthful Moments has a crossdresser and says, Jesus, stop giving me your toughest battles. And Jesus says, just use the men's room, Richard, getting 617 likes. The Immortal says, what's a meme from Jaws? It says, we're going to need a bigger, and it says mental institution. And it has a bunch of leftists getting 1.1 thousand likes. Let's see. Daniel Hall says, it's a meme of Trump. It says, Trump-sized executive order making it okay to call people gay and retarded again, getting 647 likes. Going down more and more. The random guy says, melting points, gold, 148 degrees Fahrenheit. Titanium, 3,034 degrees Fahrenheit. Liberals, having a different opinion, getting 684 likes. Also have what's up, Doc? Very unique profile name. It's a Cracker Barrel. It says, Trump F kids. Well, getting 1,000 likes. And it says that shit ain't going away. Was he ratioed, though? Well, someone has some picture of a slow kid with a hammer and sickle, kind of his logo on his chest. It says the left when they think they posted a dank meme. That only got 4 likes, though. A lot of people saying prove it. But he was not ratioed by number of likes. Let's see. Augustana says, hell yeah, I voted for this, and it's better than I expected, getting 254 likes. The DeFranzer Memes has a picture of the Chad Giga Chad guy. It says the construction workers removing the LGBTQ crosswalks, getting 477 likes. Yeah, probably not the most efficient way to get rid of those symbols, but again, you see the comments, a lot of people are in agreement of it. I think it's going to be mostly used for political campaigns and commercials, but let me know your thoughts because, as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting cultural news, you have Elon Musk posting a meme about judges letting people off the hook and going viral on social media. Now, he is also reposting for Carl Benjamin, and Carl Benjamin has a meme saying, quote, "This is not even an exaggeration." And a picture of a leftist judge with a, well, I was about to say leftist because it's still short. Well, I guess it's ginger colored hair. But nevertheless, it's a gal with short hair, glasses that are thicker than most people's thighs, and she has a BLM logo tattooed on her face. And you have a lawyer and a defendant. It says, my honor, my client is too dumb to understand shooting is bad. And the judge goes, good point, put him back into the public. And Elon Musk responded saying, quote, actually happening every day. That got 25.1 million views and 309,000 likes, which, yeah, that's, especially in the UK. The UK is a friendly reminder of the day. The UK is a weak conquered area, very much like most of Europe these days, especially, where you have them arresting citizens for memes, but letting, mass migrate, that's a nice way of saying this, illegal aliens who take advantage of women and children, letting them off the hook. And one of the reasons that some of these judges are saying is because, well, they didn't know any better. Their culture is different. Which, yeah, they're actually handing out pamphlets to individuals coming to the UK and Europe. And it says, yeah, here we don't hurt women and children. And they're giving them pamphlets, instructing them not to do that. Which, if you need a pamphlet to teach you how to be human, maybe you don't let those people into your country. You have to tell them, yeah, we don't hurt women and kids here. And yet the politicians all over there are saying, oh no, we'll bring them on in. As if you need to get another reason not to live in the UK or Europe for that matter. Now, you also have Planet of Memes finally having a meme, or meme as I call him, saying yes. It's a cowbell meme. It says, I've got a fever and the only prescription... let's see if I can do could I do his impression? Probably not well, but I'll try. I got a fever, and the only prescription is seeing soft on crime judges, liberals judges being held accountable. More cowbell. Yeah, that was a terrible impression. I tried, folks. I got 136 likes. Not me, but, the meme. Yeah, Attorney General Ken Paxton saying, quote, so tragic, one of the biggest challenges we have today is the courts. You are correct. Getting 268 likes. The Recap Media TM says this too. It's a post from those totalitarian a-holes, the UK government, saying, think before you post, getting 79, so I get 80 likes. Which, yeah, because again, in those countries, you can be arrested and fined for memes. Yeah. Going down more and more. You have the rabbit hole saying, quote, hard on crime approaches would prevent so many tragedies. And this is a figure says, prior arrest of personnel admitted to state prison in 34 states in 2014. You see prior arrests going down, then skyrockets. Let's see. Trump Tracker says, quote, totally not racist. This is the Republicans' party in 2025. Shameful. Which, I mean, again, well, I guess in the meme, the person who did the crime was African American, and the lawyer was a leftist. But again, they're like, I mean, just like at Portland, Oregon, again, they let Antifa off the hook every day. A lot of white folks in Antifa. But again, Trump Tracker did say, quote, totally not racist. This is the Republican Party in 2025. Shameful, getting 1.3 thousand likes. Was he ratioed? No. Nemesis of Lies says, documenting reality is racist? Oh, right. In the woke world, it is, getting 145 likes. Walter Hartwell White has a picture of folks with the kryptonite. You have a vampire scared of the sun. Superman is scared of kryptonite. And a liberal leftist is scared of facts, getting 24 likes. The Kraken says, facts do not care about your feelings, getting 126 likes. So he's not ratioed by number of likes, but number of comments certainly was. Amelia Henderson says, quote, true as F. Says, just one more thing. Where were all these courts when our immigration laws were being broken? Getting 113 likes. One Bad Dude says, by design, getting 39 likes. Arthur Eagleman says, quote, happening way too often. It needs to stop, getting 310 likes. Let's see. Sagiz Eterno says, quote, this is the street-level application of the academic left's 50-year war on individual agency. It is their catechism. There is no evil, only systems of oppression. The criminal is absolved of the crime, stripped of his humanity, and reduced to a mere data point in their grand theory. The profound racism of the position is the elite's belief that the entire population are incapable of moral reasoning. This is the logic of societal suicide sold as compassion. And 40 likes. We also have SKS cartoon. Although I don't think it's the exceptional work of Soviet engineering with the rifle, the SKS rifle, which is, I'd say, a marvel of engineering at the time. It's crazy to think you used to be able to get those for like $75 at hardware stores in America. Oh, the good old days of military surplus. But I partially digress. This is a cartoonist. Literally, the hashtag is SKS cartoon. Got 121,000 followers. And it's an individual. The cartoon shows a prisoner about to attack a blonde gal. And a purple-haired girl goes, Stop screaming. It's bad for the narrative. She's talking to the victim. And then the leftist turns around as the girl's being stabbed, says, carry on. Gained 1.2 thousand likes. Lost Soul says, record on repeat. And it's a donkey talking to a prisoner says, everyone deserves a second chance or 14th chance. And that's a guy who stabbed the Ukrainian refugee to death. And the donkey says, everyone deserves a second chance except the victim. Gained 553 likes. Tasha has a big quote from Elon saying, quote, we have too much empathy for criminals and not enough empathy for victims. Gained 1.1 thousand likes. Yep. Let's see. Scarlet Sky is a picture of a gal being attacked, being labeled as innocent Americans, the attacker being labeled as freshly released 27,000 repeat offenders, and a gal sitting down eating popcorn labeled as liberal activist judges. Gained 459 likes. Yep. Let's see. Jared Marsh has a picture of George Soros and says, arrest George and Alex Soros, seize their assets to rebuild the cities they paid to destroy. Gained 306 likes. Let's see. Oh, this quote has been going viral, I'd say, all fiscal quarter. From Adam Smith, it says, quote, mercy to the guilty is cruelty to the innocent. Gaining 199 likes. Well, gotta fix that. Let's make it 200 likes at least. And I can't help but think a lot of people are starting to get fed up with all these multiple arrests where people are just let off the hook time and time and time and time again. And then it's people just, victims. But, yeah, I don't know. Maybe... I think there's a cultural shift where people are less accepted to that, but let me know your thoughts, because, as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the political part of the podcast, I have Matt Walsh reacting to Chicago mayor setting up ice-free zones, as I almost thought this was impossible, but Chicago might get worse, which I guess is impressive from a dark humor perspective, because it's already so unbearable to live or visit there. Now, Matt Walsh is responding to Rapid Response 47, and he says, quote, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson just announced he signed an executive order creating ice-free zones to ban ICE agents from city property. This is sick. He is aiding and abetting criminal illegal immigrants, killers, PDFs, traffickers, gangbangers, rapists. The 21 seconds long, somehow, it's from Fox News. I don't even know how they're business. But here's Mayor Brandon Johnson, which I was going to say, what is this? There's got to be some quote about the company you keep. The gal behind him is like 300 pounds with a cow ring, which... I'm sure there are some intelligent people out there who have cow rings. I've never met them or seen them, but there's probably at least one. Probably. So, the rule of thumb is, if they have a cow ring, they're insane. Because, again, 99.9999827%, they are.
Today,
this is, again, Mayor Brandon Johnson.
Today, we are signing an executive order aimed at reining in this out-of-control administration. The order establishes ICE-free zones. That means that city property and unwilling private businesses will no longer serve as staging grounds for these raids.
Yeah, all the idiots behind him just nodding in agreement. And Matt Walsh responded saying, quote, what would happen if a mayor announced that he was setting up a IRS-free tax or IRS-free zones? Where would businesses and individuals, where individuals and businesses would be exempt from all federal taxes, and any IRS agents who came to collect would be barred from the premises. How quickly after that announcement would the mayor be in handcuffs and sitting in prison cell? Would he even last an hour? These are rhetorical questions, of course. We all know the answer. And Matt got 1.5 million views and 38,000 likes, which, yeah. Also, Chicago, of course, making the decision that is worse for the people who live in the shitty of Chicago, which I personally mispronounce just as a pejorative slight to that terrible, terrible place. And it's been terrible for how many decades has it been? Coincidentally, almost 100 years being run by Democrats. every year the crime seems to go up, businesses seem to leave, more people die. I'm sure that's a coincidence, of course. I mean, when I was a kid growing up in the Midwest, people called Chicago Chirac because on a day-to-day basis, there are some days where more people died in the city of Chicago than our soldiers in the Middle East, which is insane, though, again, not too surprising. But I'm sure, just like the Chicago Bears, I'm sure they'll be good next year, which is a sports pun and I guess a little dark humor because, yeah, the Chicago Bears, like every year, will suck, but they have great defense. That's the only thing my friends would say growing up. They have a great defense. They'll be great next year, which, no. I mean, the city of Chicago is so bad. The Chicago Bears are moving. I believe they're going to Arlington Heights. They're going outside the city. Like most businesses, they're leaving. Now, granted, I suppose the Chicago Bears can't leave the whole state. They should. But yeah, there's the joke on the Facebook. There's only one reason to ever go to Illinois. And it's always the same cliche. You have family there. Which, yeah. Now, in the comments, one of the first ones comes to us thanks to the conservative alternative, who says, quote, "This is insurrection by design. It's what the Insurrection Act was designed for. Federal law must be enforced. Otherwise, we're not an actual country." Got 919 likes, and he highlighted, it says, quote, "The Insurrection Act gives the president the power to deploy U.S. military and federalize the National Guard to suppress insurrections and enforce federal law." And later it says to enforce federal law when it is impossible to do so through ordinary judicial means due to unlawful obstructions, combinations, or assemblage or rebellion, to suppress domestic violence, unlawful combinations, or conspiracies in a state that hinder the execution of state or federal laws and deprive individuals of their constitutional rights, particularly when the state authorities fail to act. The 919 likes, and also, I mean, by that definition, the feds should have invaded most cities years ago. Again, look at the crime statistics. Most cities, and again, I don't think it's a coincidence, most of them are led by leftists and Democrats. They're just the worst places. Crime, rampant drug use, homelessness. I mean, they seem to have no use of, they seem to care nothing about protecting the actual taxpayers or law-abiding citizens. We also have American Pop Bear saying, quote, "I would vote to recall him and then encourage the district attorney to file insurrection charges as well," getting 62 likes. Scotto Pia says, quote, "It's a sad day when the American president has to fight an American government to protect the American people," getting 376 likes. Haley Carter has a screenshot from the Babylon Bee. It says, quote, "Chicago mayor hoping his ice-free zones work better than his gun-free zones," getting 36 likes, which, yeah. Also, fascinatingly enough, the areas with the most amount of gun control, aka disarming law-abiding citizens, have some of the highest homicide rates, crime rates, also theft. Yeah, they're the worst places. Flex says, quote, "Can we establish an illegal alien-free zone and call it the United States? That'd be nice." Getting 1.2 thousand likes. Mr. Patel has a comic strip, and it says, "How to Liberal." It's a guy peacefully sleeping in his bed as the background city burns to the ground. He then walks past some homeless people. He walks past someone being robbed. And then he goes on his cell phone and complains about Donald Trump, getting 315 likes. Let's see. Alaska, the actual state? No, her hashtag is Diana Irwin, which I was going to say, the state of Alaska, they should get, Lord knows they need some publicity. Most people forget Alaska even exists. But nevertheless, it's not the state of Alaska. She has a picture that says, quote, "Anarcho-tyranny. We refuse to control real criminals. That's the anarchy. We control the innocent. That's for the tyranny." It's a quote from Samuel Francis, 1994, in 56 likes. I Love American News says, "The insanity has to stop." And it says, "We are all Charlie. We the people have had enough," getting 84 likes. Now, interestingly enough, they say this has to stop. Again, people in Chicago who voted, it's sad because, again, a lot of innocent people perish because of the policies of the Chicago leadership. Again, people have been voting the same in Chicago for nearly 100 years. It's one of those things where a lot of them are, you could argue they're getting what their vote, they get what you vote for. Again, they keep voting. Again, you do have outside influences. You have a lot of political donors like George Soros that influence the election of these, also judges who let criminals off the hook. But again, it's one of those things where I'm so skeptical if there's going to be any long-term real culture or political change in Chicago. Let's see here. Any contrarian statements? You have a Silver Sultan saying, quote, "Good Lord, what the hell is this thing lurking in the background, nodding its head?" And see a picture of the large, presumably African-American woman with a cow ring and also earrings the size of dinner plates, which she also looks miserable. So again, cowering. So you presumably individual is pretty miserable as well. Getting 18 likes. Let's see. Washington Ghost says he should be in handcuffs. Getting 86 likes, which, I mean, historically speaking, that is usually how most Chicago mayors, governors, they usually retire by going to prison because they get caught for corruption. It's almost like a tradition of that terrible place. You also have Adam Johnson saying, quote, Democrats, we're a nation of laws, except immigration laws. Those can be actively defied. Getting 144 likes. Yeah. And again, apologize. I know this news was a little bit late. It's been a little bit of a crazy week. Chris Kalous says the IRS, while annoying, what? This guy standing up for the IRS, is he inebriated? Chris Kalous says, quote, the IRS, while annoying, are not treasonous Gestapo being militarized by an authoritarian tyrant. Oh, but they are. They were. Famously, under the leadership of Barack Obama, you had the IRS actively auditing all libertarian and right-sided political organizations and nonprofits. It was more than 99% of all the audits. They're all against right-wing nonprofits, libertarian nonprofits, the Tea Party. He weaponized it. And he's saying, oh yeah, the IRS is not treasonous. Also, they're stealing from us every single year. Our founding fathers would find the IRS an abhorrent, unconstitutional, disgusting thing. He did get 140 likes, so again, want to try to make sure we're not in an echo chamber, so I want to read that. Was he ratio, though? Mr. Chris Kalous? Herodotus responded saying, quote, in other words, you can't refute Matt's point whatsoever. You just don't approve the policy objectives that ICE is pursuing, getting 72 likes. Chris also says, I don't approve of pineapple on pizza or a well-done steak. That's a whole separate category beyond disapproval for treason and authoritarianism. Getting 12 likes. So Chris wants to basically have no law enforcement for illegals. A lot of people asking him, like, specifically what is treasonous, and he is not giving a rebuttal as I scroll through all the comments here. He was not ratioed by likes, but number of comments, the majority of the comments are against him. I also kind of wondering, where's this guy from? He describes himself as a climate scientist interested in theory of how atmospheres work. Is there anyone standing up for the mayor of Chicago? Citizen Caller says, quote, if Democrats start a second civil war once again to protect their supply of cheap labor, we'll have to outlaw the party completely once they're done defeated for the second time, getting 95 likes. So, again, we'll see. Again, I want places to be safe to live. It's very sad that, again, one of the most terrible places to live in the United States, not just because they have a crappy sports team, they have that as well, but again, Chicago's been one of the top crime areas for years. And so it'll be interesting to see how the rollout goes, if Trump would actually protect the city. And let me know, do you think this is overstep from a federal perspective? What do you think the locals will think of Chicago? And anecdotally, I've spoken to some people over there. They're mostly for it. But let me know your thoughts because, as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting political news, you have Kash Patel saying the FBI is very transparent, getting ratioed on social media because, not so much. Now, this is straight from the horse's mouth. Hashtag FBI Director Kash. And he says, quote, I'm sorry, it's not supposed to be a joke, though. I laughed. Now he says, quote, the transparency I promised is being delivered by the FBI, which I guess dark humor because Epstein thing. No, absolutely not. Now, the best part is he actually got fact-checked, or, readers add context on X, and they say, quote, the Trump campaign promised to release the full Epstein files, which has still not been done. And then they have all the citations there. They got 3.8 million views and 42,000 likes, which, yeah. I don't know what's scarier. I don't know what's scarier or more concerning. I don't think, it's the thing where I don't think they're not releasing it because they're inept or stupid. I think they're either compromised or either they themselves are compromised or perhaps, either they themselves are compromised or their friends are compromised or they're being forced to. But again, Pam Bondi, who has a job, allegedly, she said, oh yeah, I have all the evidence on my desk. I'll release it soon. Look at my watch here. It's been how many weeks and months now? Nothing. I mean, and in terms of politics, most Republicans aren't doing anything, which kind of cliche. That's kind of what they're known for, a lot of useless rhinos. Democrats are also doing nothing. I mean, I believe Thomas Massey is the only individual I know who's pushing to get the list uncensored. Again, we got it's such redacted. I mean, it's basically just a whole censored book when Representative Thomas Massey held it up famously. So I know he's pushing to have it released. And I believe, who is that? And I apologize, it is on the tip of my tongue. What is her name? Oh, it's the blonde representative who is not very beloved by most. They'll come to me in a New York minute. But yeah, in terms of like, well, let's see, who in DC, who should the elected officials are trying to get this released? 2 out of hundreds. That's the only people in politics who are trying to do anything, while most of them are on vacation doing nothing. So yeah, let's just say I'm not very optimistic in terms of do I think it'll ever actually be released anytime soon or ever. Now, going to the comment section, one of the first ones comes to us thanks to Retard Finder saying, quote, Epstein Files getting 16,000 likes. Scrolling down more and more, you have Gunther Eagleman says, quote, thank you, Cash, getting 160 likes. All right. Was he ratioed, though? Warwick Wade Weiler says, quote, notice Gunther used to be the biggest Epstein file guy. Now his master has told him to stop. Paige Schill getting 53 likes. Let's see. At the left says, you're the biggest conservative dick rider. You don't even hold any of them accountable. Getting 23 likes. Let's see. Chicago Distant Ward 42. Or son of a bitch. Does he live in Chicago? That'd be rough. That's, oh, yeah, there's a reason most people get out there soon. Now he says, quote, and zero accountability. There's a picture of a frog. It says, hey, look, it's been no o'clock. It's been no one been arrested at o'clock again. Getting 2,000 likes. Let's see. Orvis Korox. I don't purposely try to butcher most names. It kind of just happens naturally. And he says, quote, how about some perp walks then, Cash? It says number of arrests, Russia collusion hoax, 0. January 6th, 0. Mar-a-Lago raid, 0. Biden autopen, 0. 2020 election, 0. Epstein PDF arrest, 0. COVID, 0. Benghazi, 0. Doge fines, 0. Ukrainian impeachment hoax, 0. But we're going to get justice any day now. Haha, that's sarcasm and kind of sad. Yeah, but Republicans are really good at writing angry letters and tweeting things. But yeah, when's that we were promised accountability. It's been how many months since Trump has been in office? Again, Republicans have the White House. They have the Senate. They have the House of Representatives. And yeah, where's that justice? Again, I'm not saying you're going to arrest people overnight, but bring charges, get some court dates going, get something happening. I mean, that's why I'm so pessimistic about politics. Not to be too, I think they call it black-pilled. But yeah, when are they going to get real justice? Again, if you tune in consistently, you know I'm a big gun nut. Well, American and Texan. It's one of those things where it'd be really nice if you could repeal the 1934 NFA Act, the National Firearms Act of 1934. Again, nearly 100 years of tyranny. Now, thanks to the big beautiful bill, the tax is now $0. So presumably that could, in theory, give us the runway or the path to repeal it completely because from a constitutional perspective, and again, this is the act that means if you want to buy things like a short-barreled rifle, a short-barreled shotgun, a suppressor, machine gun, destructive device, like a grenade launcher, etc., you can do that, but the government said you can have that, but we're going to tax it in 1934. Back then, it was a $200 tax stamp when a suppressor was $7. Very prohibitive. Most people cannot afford it. The one-time inflation did help us. There's no inflation clause. That's why you see a lot more people buying suppressors, short-barreled rifles past, I would say 10 years. And it was passed legally speaking because it was a tax. Because again, they said, these are your God-given rights. Government's not doing a very good job protecting them. Nevertheless, they said legally we're going to pass this as a tax, so you can still buy it. But yeah, you have to afford a $200 tax stamp. A big beautiful bill took that $200 tax stamp down to a $0 tax, which again, now is not a form of tax revenue. Legally, there's being lawsuits by people like the Firearms Policy Coalition, Gun Owners of America, to try to get rid of it completely. But again, it's been almost 100 years. Why? What are they doing? Again, Republicans have the House, the White House, the Senate. And yet that law is still a thing. That act is still on the books. Again, you guys had Ronald Reagan making it, if you want to buy a machine gun, thanks to him, again, he could have, it was one of those, again, they inserted it, but he didn't say no. He said, oh yeah, I'll sign this. And there's in there. The Hughes Amendment is a thing where, oh yeah, if you want to buy a machine gun, it had to be registered and manufactured before 1984, which again, very limited supply makes them very prohibitively expensive. Like a full AR-15 that's transferable is about $30,000. Whereas if you go to the local sporting goods store, an AR-15 semi-auto is about $1,000, give or take. Yeah, when are they going to repeal that? Again, Republicans say they're pro-gun. America. When are they going to repeal that? Yeah, so I'm not surprised that there's no arrest with any of these controversies. You also have Ian Carroll getting 30,000 likes for this, saying, quote, "No, it's being delivered by a citizen journalist while you prosecute patsies, and you should be deeply embarrassed, Cash. You had one job, and it was Epstein. God gave you a second job with Charlie, and you failed both in the most spectacular way imaginable, getting 30,000 likes." Let's see. Gabriel Desso has a meme of the pawn shops, the pawn shop show. Pam Body says, "Can we get the Epstein list?" And she goes, "Best I can do is deport you if you criticize Israel," getting 5.9 thousand likes. Zach simply says, "Where is it?" getting 18,000 likes. America First Patriot Lady says, quote, Vahalia Patel. It says, "Kash Patel, 233 days on job, 0 deep state arrest," getting 768 likes. Yep. Mr. Op says, "Transparency," getting 4.7 thousand likes. Let's see. Ducky Mex. All right. And here's a picture of Cash and Pam. Says, quote, "Apparently prosecuting the deep state is not in their job description, despite the mountains of evidence. They have not kept their promises to the American people," getting 209 likes. Barista Terry says, quote, "Really? Because we learned 12 times more info on Charlie Kirk case from Candace Owens than from you," getting 2.8 thousand likes. We also have X Trend says, "LMFAO, sure, pal." It's a bunch of eyes and says, alcohol, weed, cocaine. Then you have Kash Patel's buggy eyes saying, quote, "Lying about Epstein," getting 11,000 likes. Though, if I'm honest, I can't critique him too much for his weird looks because, let's be honest, I look probably the same. I probably look worse in terms of weirdness if you're to take screenshots of me. You have Animals Daily saying, picture of Patrick Bateman from the, what is it? Oh, American Cycle movie with Christian Bale, and says, quote, "Impressive, very impressive, very nice. Let's see the Epstein files." Which that's probably, it got 387 likes. Well, that meme, not me. Probably the worst Christian Bale. One of the worst Christian Bale impressions all year, but you heard it here, folks. Let's see. First one says, "Anything but the Epstein files, right?" And he posts a picture. It says, quote, "The Epstein client list is not released, so we don't know how many of our politicians are being blackmailed by Mossad. As long as another country is deciding how our politicians vote and what our government officials do, they no longer represent, we are no longer a representative republic," getting 1,000 likes. Which, yeah, so we had one or two people sticking up for Kash Patel. Yeah. So I don't know there'll be any accountability anytime soon. But yeah, compared to other administrations, they've been more transparent, but that bar is so comically low, that's not saying much, and that's why they're getting critiqued so much here. And, I'm still surprised Dan Bongino hasn't resigned in disgust. His biggest passion was the release of the Epstein files, and he gave up a very lucrative job to join the government. He did it because I would suppose he was doing what his heart. He was doing the right thing. It was a money thing. He's losing money by Dan Bongino quit his daily show to go work for the government, and I'm surprised he hasn't resigned in disgust yet. And again, maybe they're going to bring charges and start to do things any day now, but it's been so long. I'm pretty pessimistic to say the least. But let me know your thoughts because, as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the business blunder of the day, you have power banks being recalled because, whoops, they might just burst into flames. Now, this brought to us thanks to the United States Consumer Product Safety Commission, perhaps the only useful government website, though. Let's be honest, that's really not saying much because that bar is, I would say, comically low. And they say, quote, and I'm not going to purposely try to butcher this name, but I can't help but think it's inevitable. It's called Zytoni. I don't think it's Italian, but it's named Zytoni recalls Kogalla power bank due to fire and burn hazards, sold on Kogalla.com. Which I never even heard of this brand before today, but apparently Kogalla makes power banks. Apparently not very well, but they attempted. Now, they say, quote, "The recall power banks include, because they're lithium ion, they can overheat and ignite even when not in use, posing a fire hazard and burn hazards affecting 2,400 units. And they say that, quote, "Consumers should immediately stop using the recalled power banks and contact Kogalla for instructions on how to receive a free replacement power bank, including shipping. Consumers will then be asked to fill out a form online at kogalla.com/product/recall/batpack replacement. Consumers should immediately dispose of the recalled power banks in accordance with state and local regulations. Again, lithium ion is very volatile, which is why you don't just throw it in the dustbin if you're in the UK or America, the trash, because, yeah, they can be quite explosive and flammable. So, again, want to make sure you recycle at a proper place. They say these are sold at Kogalla.com from June 2024 and January 2025 for the BP125 and BAT Powerpack 2F power banks, and the trail lights sold on these power banks from August 2024 to January 2025. And they say that the power banks were sold for between $45 and $90, and the trail lights and the power banks combo were sold between $180 and $230. They're imported by Zatoni of Draper, Utah, manufactured in China. And it looks like, they received 2 reports of lithium-ion batteries overheating and catching fire, even when not in use, resulting in 1 minor burn injury and property damage, totaling about $3,300. So, again, silver lining, no one's passed away from this instance. No one's died because of these power packs, but yeah, I don't know who's in charge of electrical engineering. I also had Anchor with a similar recall earlier this year. But yeah, they seem to be cutting corners somewhere. So to have yet another recall, or rather in this case, your first recall at Kogalla being the first thing I hear about you, and considering it can actually hurt people and their property in a pretty severe way, I gotta say, Kogalla, you are certainly the business blunder of the day. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Again, try to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so you click that button. I greatly appreciate it. Also, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, and comment. It's a great way to give me some additional feedback. Let me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, anyone, everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.